Welcome back to Crime Story with Camila. Today we talk about the chilling story of the Shafia Family Murders, a chilling honor killing in Canada. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. The Rideau Canal, a peaceful stretch of water connecting the cities of Kingston and Ottawa, holds a history of quiet beauty. But on the morning of June 30th, 2009, this tranquil setting became the backdrop for a gruesome discovery. Beneath the still waters, authorities found a vehicle submerged, its secrets more sinister than anyone could have imagined. What appeared to be a tragic accident quickly unraveled into one of the most horrifying and calculated crimes in Canadian history. 4 lives lost, not to fate, but to betrayal and bloodshed. This is the story of the Shafia Family Murders. The Shafia family story began far from the quiet neighborhoods of Montreal, Canada. Mohammed Shafia, a wealthy businessman from Afghanistan, built his fortune in the Dubai import-export trade. Seeking a better future for his family, Shafia decided to emigrate to Canada in 2007, bringing with him his second wife, Tuba Yahya, their 7 children, and his first wife, Rona Amir Mohammed, whom he introduced to the world as a relative. The Shafias arrived in Canada with wealth and ambition, purchasing a sprawling home and several luxury vehicles. But behind the doors of their seemingly perfect home, tension simmered. Shafia's obsession with maintaining his family's honor created an atmosphere of strict control and fear. For the 3 eldest daughters, Zainab, Sahar, and Geeti, the move to Canada offered a glimmer of freedom. But this clashed with their father's rigid beliefs rooted in a traditional patriarchal culture. Even their stepmother, Rona, bore the weight of oppression, living as an invisible wife in a household where her voice carried no weight. At the heart of this tragic story are 4 lives: Zainab, Sahar, and Geeti Shafia, 3 vibrant, spirited sisters, and Rona Amir Mohammed, a quiet woman who spent her life as a forgotten wife. Zainab, the eldest at 19, was seen as the leader among her siblings. She was bold, defiant, and determined to embrace a life of independence in Canada. But her attempts to break free often brought her into conflict with her father. In a bold move, Zainab once left the family home to escape the stifling control, finding refuge with a shelter and eventually marrying a man her father disapproved of. This act of defiance became a critical turning point in the story, seen by Shafia as an unforgivable betrayal. Sahar, the 17-year-old middle sister, was described as beautiful and full of life. Yet beneath her radiant smile was a teenager living in constant fear. At school, Sahar confided in friends and counselors about the emotional abuse she endured at home. Her struggle to balance her cultural expectations with her yearning for freedom left her feeling trapped, vulnerable, and desperate. Geeti, the youngest of the 3 sisters at just 13, was outspoken and fearless despite her age. She frequently voiced her desire for freedom, even filing complaints with social services about the abuse at home. But despite her cries for help, her warnings went unanswered, leaving her vulnerable to the family's wrath. Rona Amir Mohammed, Mohammed Shafia's first wife, lived a life of quiet suffering. In a polygamous marriage concealed from the world, Rona was treated as an outsider. She documented her pain in secret diary entries, where she expressed heartbreak over her declining role in the family and her fears for the girls. Rona's position as a wife, without status, left her powerless to protect herself or the sisters from what was to come. For women, each with dreams of freedom, were silenced by those who should have protected them. Their only crime was yearning for a life beyond control and oppression. These were their lives, cut short in the name of twisted honor. The murders were not a crime of passion, but a calculated plan devised days, if not weeks, in advance. Mohammed Shafia, the family patriarch, saw his daughter's desire for independence and Rona's defiance as unforgivable betrayals. In his eyes, their actions had brought dishonor to his family, a stain that could only be erased through death. To Shafia, Zainab's marriage against his will, Sahar's modern lifestyle, and Geeti's rebellious nature symbolized a loss of control over his family. Meanwhile, Rona's increasing desperation to escape her situation further fueled his rage. He became fixated on restoring his twisted version of family honor, even if it meant ending their lives. In the days before the murders, Muhammad Shafia discussed the details with his second wife, Tuba Yahya, and their eldest son, Hamed. Together, they scouted the Kingston Mills locks at the Rideau Canal, a desolate location that would soon become the scene of an unthinkable crime. Investigators would later uncover evidence of meticulous planning. Hamed searched online for information about canal depths and how to stage car accidents. Surveillance footage captured him purchasing gas and supplies for the trip, further confirming their sinister intent. On the night of June 29, 2009, the Shafias set their plan into motion. The family departed for what appeared to be a road trip to Niagara Falls. But their true destination was far more sinister, a remote area by the Rideau Canal, where the final act of their plan would unfold. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the Shafia family drove through the quiet roads of Kingston, Ontario. Two vehicles moved together. A Nissan Sentra carrying Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona, and a Lexus SUV driven by Muhammad Shafia, with Hamed and Tuba accompanying him. Upon arriving near the Rideau Canal, Muhammad Shafia suggested they stop to rest. The girls and Rona, weary from the long drive, were persuaded to remain in the Sentra while the others stayed nearby in the SUV. This seemingly innocent stop was part of a calculated ruse to isolate the victims. Hamed, the eldest son, played a crucial role in orchestrating the crime. Investigators would later reveal that he scouted the area, ensuring no witnesses were present and confirming that the canal's locks were deep enough to submerge the car completely. Inside the car, Zainab, Sahar, and Geeti drifted into uneasy sleep, exhausted from the day. Rona Amir Muhammad, whose role in the family had been one of silent suffering, sat quietly in the back seat. Her diary entries had foretold her fear for the girls, but even she could not imagine the extent of the danger that night. The car was pushed or driven into the canal, with Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona trapped inside. The steep locks of the canal ensured that the vehicle sank rapidly, leaving the victims with no time to escape. In their final moments, the victims would have experienced sheer terror. The confined space of the vehicle quickly filled with water, sealing their fate. The Shafia family ensured there would be no survivors. After committing the crime, the Shafia family left the scene without hesitation. To them, the deed was done. They believed the deaths would be dismissed as a tragic accident, an illusion that would soon crumble. Hours later, a passerby noticed the car submerged in the canal and alerted authorities. What first appeared to be an accident quickly revealed itself as something far more sinister. The Shafia family presented themselves as grieving relatives, insisting that the deaths were the result of a misfortunate accident. But the evidence left behind would soon paint a very different picture. As the investigation deepened, new evidence began to surface. Security footage placed the family near the canal hours before the incident. Cell phone records revealed that Hamed had made suspicious calls in the middle of the night, raising even more red flags. The discovery of Rona Amir Muhammad's diary was a breakthrough. Her writings detailed years of abuse, threats, and fears of impending violence. This, combined with mounting forensic evidence, turned the case from a presumed accident into a murder investigation. What initially appeared to be a tragic accident quickly unraveled into a full-fledged homicide investigation. Detectives began piecing together a web of evidence that revealed the truth behind the deaths of Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona. The forensic analysis of the crime scene provided investigators with critical insights, shifting the case from a presumed accident to a premeditated act of murder. The Nissan Sentra showed no signs of a high-speed crash. The absence of dents, broken headlights, or skid marks on the canal's edge indicated that the car had been gently pushed into the water. Autopsies confirmed the cause of death as drowning, with water found in the victims' lungs. This meant they were alive when the car entered the canal. The positioning of their bodies suggested they had been unable to move, likely incapacitated or restrained before the vehicle was submerged. Inside the car, investigators found the victims' belongings scattered but intact. The lack of damage to these items supported the theory that this was no accident, but a deliberate act designed to simulate one. Perhaps the most damning evidence was the discovery of large rocks in the car's trunk. These were intentionally placed to ensure the vehicle would sink quickly, leaving the victims no chance of survival. At the crime scene, detectives found faint tire tracks leading directly to the canal. The positioning of the tracks suggested that the car had been driven or pushed intentionally, further confirming suspicions of foul play. The forensic breakthroughs aligned with the mounting circumstantial evidence, painting a chilling picture of premeditated murder. With every detail examined, the case against the Shafia family grew stronger. As investigators delved into the Shafia family's accounts, inconsistencies and contradictions began to emerge. Each member of the family provided conflicting stories about the events leading to the deaths of Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona. Mohammed Shafia claimed he had no knowledge of how the car ended up in the canal. He insisted that Zainab, the eldest daughter, had taken the vehicle without permission after an argument. He referred to the incident as an act of rebellion, saying, "Zainab was always difficult. She took the car to teach us a lesson. She didn't care about the family's rules." Tuba Yahya portrayed herself as a grieving mother, devastated by the loss of her daughters and Rona. She echoed Shafia's claims that Zainab had taken the car without their knowledge. However, her emotions seemed to shift when pressed about the family's dynamics. She said, "I loved my daughters, but they brought shame to our family. They didn't respect us or our culture." Hamed claimed he was not present during the incident, stating he was at home asleep. However, his alibi began to crumble when investigators presented phone records and security footage placing him near the canal that night. He said, "I had nothing to do with this. My sisters were reckless, always making bad decisions." The family statements were riddled with contradictions. Muhammad claimed Zainab was alone in the car, while Tuba suggested all four victims left together. Haim's denial of involvement clashed with mounting evidence, placing him at the scene. The investigation took a dark turn when police uncovered secretly recorded conversations between the family. In one recording, Mohammed Shafia expressed no remorse for the deaths, referring to his daughters as traitors. He said, "May the devil shit on their graves. They brought disgrace to us." Asterisk. The chilling recordings, coupled with the family's contradictory statements, painted a harrowing picture of calculated murder driven by a distorted sense of honor. The Shafia family's version of events was quickly unraveling. In the digital age, every action leaves a trace. Investigators turned to technology to piece together the Shafia family's movements, communications, and plans leading up to the murders. Hamed Shafia's claims of being at home unraveled when police retrieved GPS data from his phone and car. The records placed him near the canal on the night of the murders, at times matching the moment the vehicle was pushed into the water. Incriminating evidence also emerged from the family's internet search history. In the weeks leading up to the murders, Hamed and Mohammed Shafia conducted suspicious searches on topics like drowning vehicles and ensuring they would sink completely. Phone records revealed a series of calls between family members on the night of the murders. Hamed and Mohammed spoke multiple times, both before and after the car was submerged in the canal. The timing of these calls aligned with the moments the murders were believed to have occurred, further implicating the family in the crime. Security cameras along the highway captured Haim's car traveling toward the Kingston Mills Canal in the early hours of June 30th. The footage confirmed his presence in the area, contradicting his earlier claims of being home. Together, the digital evidence left no doubt about the Shafia family's involvement. GPS data, search history, phone records, and surveillance footage wove a narrative of cold, calculated murder, planned down to the smallest detail. Among the most heartbreaking pieces of evidence in the Shafia murder case was the discovery of Rona Amir Muhammad's diary, a haunting record of her life as a suppressed and abused co-wife in the Shafia household. Combined with testimonies from confidants and relatives, it painted a grim picture of the family's toxic dynamics. Rona's diary chronicled years of emotional and physical abuse inflicted by Mohammed Shafia and Tuba Yahya. Her words revealed a life of isolation and despair, as well as her growing fear for the safety of the children, especially the daughters. The entries became increasingly foreboding in the months leading up to the murders. Rona wrote about overhearing conversations between Shafia and Tuba, hinting at plans to punish the daughters for their defiance. The entries became increasingly foreboding in the months leading up to the murders. Rona wrote about overhearing conversations between Shafia and Tuba, hinting at plans to punish the daughters for their defiance. The entries became increasingly foreboding in the months leading up to the murders. Rona wrote about overhearing conversations between Shafia and Tuba, hinting at plans to punish the daughters for their defiance. One confidant revealed that Rona had begged to leave the family, but her pleas were ignored. Cultural and financial pressures left her with no way out. Rona's diary became a key piece of evidence in the trial, offering a first-hand account of the abuse and providing a motive for the murders. Her words revealed the Shafia's obsession with family honor and the lengths they were willing to go to protect it. Rona's diary became a key piece of evidence in the trial, offering a first-hand account of the abuse and providing a motive for the murders. Her words revealed the Shafia's obsession with family honor and the lengths they were willing to go to protect it. In many conservative cultures, including the Shafia's Afghan roots, family honor is considered paramount. It governs personal conduct, particularly for women, whose behavior is often seen as a reflection of the entire family's morality and standing. Zainab, Sahar, and Geeti were accused by their father of bringing dishonor to the family. Zainab's decision to marry a man without her parents' consent was seen as the ultimate betrayal. Sahar and Geeti's choices to wear Western clothing, have boyfriends, and challenge traditional norms only added to the tension. Wiretaps revealed chilling conversations where Mohammed Shafia expressed no remorse for the deaths, instead framing them as a necessary act to restore his family's honor. Shafia's authoritarian grip on the family left no room for dissent. Tuba Yahya, while seemingly a victim of his abuse, became a willing accomplice, supporting her husband's beliefs and justifying the need to punish the daughters. Hamd Shafia, deeply influenced by his father's ideology, became an active participant in the murders. As the eldest son, he was expected to uphold and enforce the family's honor at all costs. The notion of honor killing shocked Canada, sparking debates about cultural integration, misogyny, and the misuse of tradition to justify violence. While the Shafias claimed they were misunderstood, the overwhelming evidence pointed to a calculated act of control and vengeance. As the trial reached its climax, the prosecution meticulously connected every piece of evidence, weaving a story of premeditated murder driven by a warped sense of family honor. It was the final pieces of the puzzle that left no doubt about the Shafia's guilt. The prosecution presented a chilling timeline of events, backed by evidence that proved the murders were carefully planned and executed. Forensic experts testified that the car had been deliberately driven into the canal, with the victims already inside. Wiretaps captured Shafia's chilling admissions, where he openly celebrated the deaths and cursed the daughters for bringing shame. Combined with digital evidence of Hamd scouting locations and the damning text messages, the story was complete. The prosecutor reminded the jury of the victims, for women who had their futures stolen because they dared to live their lives freely. She argued that the Shafia's actions were not an impulsive act, but a calculated plan to eradicate what they saw as a stain on their honor. The defense struggled to counter the overwhelming evidence. Their arguments that the deaths were an accident fell apart under the weight of forensic, digital, and testimonial evidence. The jury was left with little room for doubt. After weeks of gripping testimony and emotional revelations, the Shafia family's trial reached its dramatic conclusion. The eyes of the world were now on the Canadian court, as the Shafias faced charges for the brutal killings of 4 family members, including 3 innocent young girls. The defense argued that the deaths were an accident, blaming the girls' behavior for the tragic event. They painted a picture of a father whose decisions were misunderstood and a mother who acted out of fear. But the prosecution presented the true narrative, a father who would go to any length to preserve his distorted sense of honor. For those who knew the victims, the trial was an opportunity to seek justice, but it was also a painful reminder of the lives lost. Witnesses described the daughters as vibrant, full of life, and unafraid to challenge the constraints of their culture. They spoke of Rona's endless love for her children and how she too had been a victim of a controlling and violent marriage. As the trial drew to a close, the jury was tasked with determining the fate of the Shafia family. Could they reconcile the notion of family honor with the overwhelming evidence of cold-blooded murder? The jury's deliberations were tense and prolonged, with many struggling to accept the idea of honor as a valid justification for such brutality. On January 29, 2012, after months of emotional testimony, the Shafia family was found guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder. Muhammad Shafia, Tuba Yahya, and their son, Hamd, were all convicted for the brutal deaths of Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona. Muhammad Shafia was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. Tuba Yahya received a life sentence with no parole for 25 years as well. Hamd, their son, was sentenced to life in prison but would be eligible for parole after 18 years. While justice was served, the true cost of this crime is immeasurable. For lives were lost, not just in death, but in the years of suffering they endured. The Shafia family story remains a chilling reminder of how deeply the concept of honor can be twisted into something deadly. The conclusion of the trial marked the end of one of Canada's most harrowing murder cases. The verdict sent shockwaves across the nation, igniting conversations about domestic violence, cultural conflicts, and the dark realities of so-called honor killings. The Shafia murders became a symbol of the struggles faced by women trapped in oppressive environments. Advocacy groups and lawmakers pushed for more education on the dangers of patriarchal practices, hoping to prevent future tragedies like this. Following the trial, Canada implemented stronger measures to address issues of forced marriage and violence against women. Community organizations expanded their outreach to immigrant families, emphasizing the importance of integration and the protection of human rights over outdated traditions. For those who knew the victims, the pain of their loss remains, but so does the determination to honor their memory. Advocacy groups continue to work tirelessly, ensuring that the lives of Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona were not lost in vain. In the end, the legacy of Zainab, Sahar, Geeti, and Rona lives on in the hearts of those who remember them. They serve as a reminder of the strength it takes to defy oppression and the cost of ignoring cries for help. Their lives, though tragically cut short, continue to inspire change. The story of the Shafia family is a stark reminder of the consequences of silence. By standing together and speaking out, we can ensure that no one else becomes a victim in the name of honor.
Thanks for watching. For more interesting videos, please subscribe.